She asked him to help her become a mother, but never expected to fall desperately in love with him. Now she can't imagine life without the man who gave her everything she never knew she needed. Lisa was 34 years old and had everything she thought she wanted in life. She had a great job as an architect, a nice apartment in the city, and good friends. But there was one thing missing. She desperately wanted to become a mother. For 5 long years, she tried everything possible. Doctor visits, treatments, procedures that cost more money than she ever imagined spending. Her savings account went from healthy to almost empty. But nothing worked. The stress of trying to have a baby took a toll on her marriage too. Her husband couldn't handle the pressure anymore. The constant doctor appointments, the emotional ups and downs, the financial strain. One day he just said he was done. They got divorced. And Lisa found herself alone, heartbroken, and still without the child she longed for. She felt like she had hit rock bottom. All that money spent, all those years of hoping and waiting, and she had nothing to show for it. Her younger sister noticed how sad she was becoming. One afternoon while they were having coffee, her sister mentioned something that caught Lisa's attention. She talked about their old friend from high school, someone they had known since they were kids. His name was Daniel, and he lived outside the city on a small farm. He grew organic vegetables and lived a simple, quiet life. Her sister remembered that years ago, Daniel had helped a couple have a baby by being a donor. He was that kind of person, always willing to help others without expecting anything in return. Lisa's sister suggested maybe Daniel could help her too. At first, Lisa felt embarrassed even thinking about it. How do you ask someone for something like that? But desperation makes you brave. She had tried everything else. What did she have to lose? She found Daniel's number and called him. Her hands were shaking as the phone rang. When he picked up, she could barely get the words out. But Daniel was patient and kind, just like she remembered from their school days. They met at a small coffee shop the following week. Lisa explained her situation. She told him about the failed treatments, her divorce, her empty bank account, and her dream of becoming a mother. Before it was too late, she asked if he would consider helping her. But not through a clinic. She couldn't afford those expensive procedures anymore. She needed a more natural approach, though she knew how strange it sounded. Daniel listened without judging her. He asked a lot of questions. He wanted to understand what she was really asking for and what she expected from him. Would he be involved in the child's life? What kind of relationship would they have? Lisa assured him she only wanted help conceiving. After that, she would raise the child on her own. She didn't expect anything else from him. Daniel took a few days to think about it. He had an 8-year-old daughter from a previous relationship, so he understood the responsibility of being a parent. He also knew what it felt like to want a family. Finally, he called Lisa back and agreed to help her. But he set some clear rules. This was only about helping an old friend become a mother. Nothing more, nothing less. They both agreed to keep emotions out of it. They decided to meet at Lisa's apartment once a month during the times when conception would be most likely. The first meeting was incredibly awkward. Neither of them knew quite how to handle the situation. They were both nervous, making small talk about the weather and work. Anything to break the tension. When the moment came, it felt clinical and strange. Afterward, Daniel left quickly, and Lisa sat alone, wondering if this was the right decision. The second month was slightly less awkward, but still uncomfortable. They barely spoke, just did what needed to be done and went their separate ways. Lisa felt grateful for Daniel's help, but also a bit sad about how impersonal it all felt. This wasn't how she had imagined her journey to motherhood would be, but she reminded herself that the end result was all that mattered. She wanted a baby, and this was her last real chance. By the third month, something shifted. Daniel arrived one evening, and instead of the usual awkward silence, they actually started talking. He asked her how work was going. She told him about a difficult project she was managing. He shared a funny story about his daughter's school play. They laughed together, and for the first time, the evening felt less like a transaction and more like two old friends reconnecting. As the months continued, Lisa and Daniel fell into an unexpected routine. What started as quick, uncomfortable meetings slowly transformed into something different. Daniel would arrive at Lisa's apartment, and before anything else, they would sit and talk for hours. He told her about his life on the farm, the challenges of growing organic vegetables, the satisfaction of working with his hands in the soil. Lisa shared stories about her architectural projects, her dreams of designing sustainable buildings, her fears about becoming a mother at her age. Lisa found herself looking forward to Daniel's visits in a way she hadn't anticipated. She started noticing little things about him that she had forgotten from their school days. The way he listened so carefully when she spoke, never interrupting or judging, how his eyes crinkled when he smiled, the gentle way he moved, like someone who was comfortable in his own skin. She caught herself thinking about him between visits, wondering what he was doing, whether he thought about her too. One evening, Daniel brought fresh vegetables from his farm. Tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce still covered in morning dew. He said he thought she might enjoy them. Lisa was touched by the gesture. It was such a simple thing, but it showed he was thinking about her beyond their arrangement. She made them both a salad, and they ate together at her small kitchen table, talking about everything and nothing. Daniel started asking about her doctor appointments. Was she taking her vitamins? Getting enough rest? Eating properly? Lisa assured him she was taking care of herself, but secretly she loved that he cared enough to ask. It made her feel less alone in this journey. For so long, she had carried this burden by herself. Even when she was married, her ex-husband had checked out emotionally long before he left physically. But Daniel was present, engaged, genuinely interested in her well-being. Between visits, they started texting. At first, it was just practical stuff about scheduling their next meeting. But gradually, the messages became more personal. Daniel would send her photos from the farm, a sunset over his fields, his daughter's drawing of a rainbow. Lisa would share pictures of buildings she admired downtown, funny moments from her day at work. They developed inside jokes, things that would make them both laugh. Lisa's best friend noticed the change in her. "You seem different lately," she said one day. "Happier. More relaxed." Lisa tried to brush it off, saying she was just feeling hopeful about finally becoming a mother, but her friend gave her a knowing look. "It's more than that. You're glowing. Is there someone special in your life?" Lisa denied it quickly. Maybe too quickly. She told herself her friend was imagining things. This was just a practical arrangement with an old friend, nothing more. But late at night, lying in bed, Lisa couldn't deny the truth to herself. She was developing feelings for Daniel. Real feelings. The kind that made her heart race when she saw his name pop up on her phone. The kind that made her change her outfit 3 times before he arrived. The kind that made her replay their conversations in her mind, analyzing every word, every glance, every smile. She tried to push these feelings down. This wasn't part of the plan. Daniel had agreed to help her have a baby, not to be her boyfriend. She was afraid that if she acknowledged what she was feeling, it would ruin everything. What if he didn't feel the same way? What if telling him made him uncomfortable and he backed out of their arrangement? She couldn't risk it. Not when she was so close to her dream of becoming a mother. Daniel seemed to be opening up more too. He talked about his own loneliness sometimes, living on the farm with just his daughter part-time. He mentioned how nice it was to have adult conversation, to connect with someone who understood him. Lisa wondered if he meant something deeper by those words, but she didn't dare ask. The uncertainty was killing her, but she forced herself to stay quiet, to maintain the boundaries they had agreed upon. One evening, Daniel stayed later than usual. They had been talking for hours, and Lisa realized it was past midnight. He apologized for keeping her up so late. As he got ready to leave, he paused at the door and looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. For a moment, she thought he might say something important. Her heart pounded, but then he just smiled, said goodnight, and left. Lisa stood at the closed door, wondering what he had been thinking, wishing she had the courage to ask. The 4th month brought news that changed everything. Lisa woke up one morning feeling different. Not sick exactly, but not quite right either. She had been through this before. The hoping and wondering. Taking test after test that came back negative. She told herself not to get her hopes up. But something felt different this time. Something felt real. She waited until the afternoon to take the test. Her hands shook as she opened the package. Those 3 minutes of waiting felt like 3 hours. When she finally looked at the result, she saw 2 clear lines. Positive. She was pregnant. After all these years, all the heartbreak, all the trying, it had finally happened. Lisa sat on her bathroom floor and cried tears of joy and relief and disbelief all mixed together. Her first instinct was to call Daniel. She grabbed her phone, then hesitated. How should she tell him? What would this mean for them? Would he disappear now, that the job was done? The thought made her stomach drop. She realized she didn't want him to disappear. She wanted him in her life, not just as the person who helped her get pregnant, but as something more, something real. She decided to tell him in person. She invited him over for dinner that evening, saying she had important news to share. Daniel arrived looking curious and a bit worried. Had something gone wrong? Was she okay? Lisa made him sit down at the kitchen table. She poured them both water with shaking hands. Then she told him. She was pregnant. They had done it. The look on Daniel's face was something Lisa would never forget. First surprise, then joy, then something else she couldn't quite identify. He stood up and hugged her, lifting her slightly off the ground. When he put her down, there were tears in his eyes. He asked if she was sure, if she had seen a doctor yet, how she was feeling. Lisa laughed through her own tears and answered all his questions. Then Daniel said something that surprised her. He asked if he could come with her to the first doctor appointment. Not because he had to, but because he wanted to. He wanted to see the ultrasound, hear the heartbeat, be part of this journey. Lisa agreed immediately, her heart soaring. This was more than she had hoped for. To celebrate, Daniel insisted on cooking dinner for them. He ran out to his truck and came back with more vegetables and some fresh eggs from his farm. While he cooked, Lisa watched him move around her kitchen like he belonged there. She imagined what it would be like if this was their life, the two of them together, preparing to welcome a baby into the world as a real couple. The thought made her chest ache with longing. Over dinner, they talked about the future. Daniel asked practical questions about her plans. Would she keep working? Did she have help lined up for, after the baby came? Where would the baby sleep? Lisa answered, but she also noticed that Daniel kept saying, we, instead of you. We should start looking at cribs. We need to make sure you're eating enough protein. We're going to have a baby. Each time he said it, Lisa's hope grew a little stronger. After dinner, Daniel didn't leave right away like he usually did. They sat on Lisa's couch, talking about baby names and nursery colors and all the little details that new parents think about. At some point, Lisa rested her head on Daniel's shoulder without really thinking about it. He didn't pull away. Instead, he wrapped his arm around her, pulling her closer. They sat like that for a long time, comfortable in the silence, both lost in their own thoughts about what was happening between them. When Daniel finally left that night, he kissed Lisa's forehead. It was a gentle, tender gesture that felt more intimate than anything they had shared before. Lisa touched the spot after he left, her fingers tracing where his lips had been. She knew she was in trouble. She wasn't just falling for Daniel anymore. She had already fallen completely. She was addicted to his presence, his kindness, the way he made her feel safe and cherished. The question was, did he feel the same way? And if he did, what were they going to do about it? The pregnancy brought Daniel and Lisa closer in ways she never expected. He came with her to every doctor appointment, asking questions and taking notes, like he was studying for an exam. When she had morning sickness, he showed up with ginger tea and crackers. When she couldn't sleep because of back pain, he came over and rubbed her back until she dozed off on the couch. When she craved strange food combinations at midnight, he drove across town to find exactly what she wanted. Lisa's friends started asking questions. Who was this mystery man who was always around? Was he the baby's father? Were they together? Lisa didn't know how to answer. Technically, Yes, he was the father. But were they together? She didn't know. They hadn't labeled what they were. They hadn't discussed whether this was becoming something more than their original arrangement. And Lisa was too afraid to bring it up. What if Daniel was just being kind? What if he was only staying involved because he felt responsible? What if she confessed her feelings and scared him away? Daniel started spending more time at Lisa's apartment. He helped her paint the nursery a soft yellow color. They spent a whole weekend assembling furniture, laughing at the confusing instructions, and celebrating when they finally got the crib to stand properly. Daniel brought his daughter to meet Lisa one Saturday. The little girl was shy at first, but soon warmed up to Lisa, asking excited questions about the baby and whether it would be a boy or girl. Lisa fell in love with Daniel's daughter almost as quickly as she had fallen for him. The girl was sweet and curious, with her father's gentle nature. Watching Daniel with his daughter, seeing how patient and loving he was, only made Lisa's feelings stronger. This was the kind of father she had always wanted for her child. This was the kind of man she had always wanted in her life. But something was bothering Lisa. As much as she loved having Daniel around, she also felt herself becoming dependent on him in a way that scared her. She found herself unable to make simple decisions without asking his opinion first. She waited anxiously for his texts and calls. When he couldn't visit for a few days because of work on the farm, she felt lost and lonely. She realized with growing panic that she wasn't just falling in love with him, she was becoming addicted to him, to his presence, to the way he made her feel complete. This addiction frightened her. What would happen after the baby was born? Would Daniel slowly fade out of her life? Would he move on? Maybe find someone else? Leaving her alone with a baby and a broken heart? The thought was unbearable. Lisa decided she needed to protect herself. She needed to create some distance before she got hurt. She started pulling back. When Daniel called, she kept the conversations short. When he offered to come over, she made excuses about being tired or busy. When he asked if everything was okay, she assured him she was fine, just trying to be more independent before the baby came. Daniel seemed confused and hurt, but he respected her wishes and gave her space. But the space Lisa created only made things worse. She missed him desperately. Every morning she woke up wanting to text him. Every evening, she hoped he would show up at her door. She caught herself crying over silly things, like seeing a commercial with a happy family, or passing by the restaurant where they had celebrated her positive pregnancy test. Her sister noticed how miserable she looked and asked what was wrong. Lisa finally broke down and confessed everything. She loved Daniel. She was addicted to him. And she was terrified that these feelings were one-sided. Her sister shook her head in disbelief. "Are you blind?" she asked. "That man is obviously in love with you too. The way he looks at you, the way he takes care of you, the way he talks about the baby like it's his whole world. He's not just being kind, he's showing you how he feels. You need to talk to him before you ruin this by pushing him away." Lisa knew her sister was right, but fear kept her silent. What if she was reading the signs wrong? What if she told Daniel how she felt, and he politely explained that he was just trying to be a good friend and co-parent? The rejection would destroy her. But living in this limbo was destroying her too. She was 32 weeks pregnant now, round and tired and emotional. She needed to know where they stood. She needed to know if they had a future together, or if she should start preparing to do this alone. At 32 weeks, Lisa's carefully maintained distance from Daniel crumbled in the most unexpected way. She woke up in the middle of the night with severe pain. Something was wrong. She knew immediately this wasn't normal pregnancy discomfort. She called an ambulance, and as the paramedics were loading her into the vehicle, she did something she had been trying not to do. She called Daniel. He answered on the second ring, his voice thick with sleep. When Lisa explained what was happening, she could hear him moving, getting dressed, starting his truck. "I'm coming. I'll meet you at the hospital. You're not alone. Do you hear me? You're not alone." His words were the only thing keeping her calm as the contractions got worse. The baby was coming early, too early. Lisa was terrified. Daniel made it to the hospital before they took Lisa to the delivery room. He burst through the emergency department doors, still wearing his farm boots, and a shirt he had clearly grabbed in the dark. He found Lisa's room and immediately went to her side, taking her hand. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere." Lisa squeezed his hand so hard she thought she might break his fingers, but he never once complained. The next 14 hours were the longest of Lisa's life. The baby was coming early, and there were complications. The doctors used words like distress and emergency that made Lisa's heart race with fear. But through it all, Daniel never left her side. He held her hand, wiped her forehead, whispered encouragement when she thought she couldn't go on. When the pain got too intense and Lisa screamed that she couldn't do it, Daniel looked her right in the eyes and said, "Yes, you can. You're the strongest person I know, and we're doing this together." Finally, after what felt like forever, they heard it. A baby crying. A beautiful, healthy baby girl. 7 pounds, 5 ounces, with a full head of dark hair and the loudest voice anyone had ever heard. The nurses cleaned her up and placed her on Lisa's chest. Lisa looked down at her daughter, this tiny, perfect human she had wanted for so long, and the tears wouldn't stop flowing. Then she looked up at Daniel. He was crying too, openly and without shame. He was staring at the baby with an expression of pure wonder and love. "She's perfect," he whispered. "You did it. You made this perfect little person." His hand gently touched the baby's head, and the infant wrapped her tiny fingers around one of his. In that moment, something inside Daniel broke open. "I can't do this anymore," he said suddenly. Lisa's heart stopped. Was he leaving? Had this been too much? But then Daniel continued. "I can't pretend anymore, Lisa. I'm in love with you. I have been for months. Maybe longer. I love you, and I love this baby, and I want us to be a real family. Not because of some arrangement or agreement, but because I choose you. I choose both of you. Every single day. Every single." Lisa couldn't believe what she was hearing. Through her exhaustion and emotions, she managed to speak. "I'm in love with you too. I have been for so long. I've been addicted to you, Daniel, to your presence, your kindness, the way you make me feel complete. I was afraid to tell you because I thought you were just being helpful, just being a good person. I never imagined you might feel the same way." Quote, Daniel laughed, a sound of pure relief and joy. "How could I not fall in love with you? You're everything I've ever wanted. I was terrified you only saw me as a means to an end, that once you had the baby, you wouldn't need me anymore. I've been trying to make myself indispensable, hoping you'd want me to stick around." They talked for hours after that, even as Lisa held their sleeping daughter. They confessed everything. How they had both been fighting their feelings, how they had both been scared of rejection, how they had both been hoping the other person felt the same way, but were too afraid to ask. They laughed at how silly they had been, dancing around each other when they could have been together all along. 6 months later, Daniel and Lisa were living together on the farm. Lisa had transitioned to working remotely so she could be with Daniel and the baby. Daniel's older daughter had embraced her role as big sister with enthusiasm, always wanting to help with the baby. The house was full of laughter and chaos and love. Lisa often reflected on how she had gotten here. She had started this journey desperate and alone, looking for any way to become a mother. She had entered into an arrangement that seemed purely practical, but somewhere along the way, that arrangement had transformed into the greatest love story of her life. She had been looking for a baby, but she had found so much more. She had found a partner, a family, a home, and a love that felt like coming home after a long journey. When friends asked her how she and Daniel got together, Lisa would smile and say it was complicated. The truth was, it was both simple and extraordinary. She had been trying to create life, and in the process, she had created a whole new life for herself, one filled with more love than she ever thought possible.